welcome back. And I know it was only in July we were back in Khwai. Well, we're back to Khwai again. It's August now, and we're doing a 4-day, a 4-night trip to Khwai. We're going along with some friends of ours. They were from the UK. They really wanted to see a little bit of Africa, and so we were taking them out. Coming along with us is also my brother. He's driving a little Toyota RAV. And I think that's interesting to note that you don't need some big fancy 4x4 in the dry season to go to Khwai. Yes, the roads are bad, but even a small 4x4 or an all-wheel drive like the Toyota RAV finds it perfectly capable in these conditions. As usual, the road from Shirobi going to Mapme is very corrugated, especially that first 20 kilometers. But to be honest, this time the road wasn't that bad. In fact, even though it was corrugated, it wasn't as bad as it usually is. Here we are, just stopping to make sure everything is tied together. The old Nissan Safari, I'm going to give you a heads up, it did give us problems along the way. More about that later on. But all in all, we survived. This is the veterinary gate. I love the little Franklins running around. But this is the veterinary gate. I've never really been stopped going into the parks, but they do stop you and spray your tires as you leave the northern sections. Our junction goes to Mapme, goes to Khwai. Obviously, we're staying on the Khwai side and heading to Khwai. From the junction up to Sankuyo, this is Sankuyo village we're going through now. The road is okay. It's not as bad as the first 20 kilometers. It is corrugated, but it's not sandy. It's just a bit corrugated, but not really that bad. But as you can see just how dry it is. Here we are doing a little bit of a check. We have a little bit of a problem here. What has happened here is one of the U-bolts that hold the springs to the axle and thus the wheels to the car is sheared off. And so here I am jacking it up and trying to straighten the wheel and basically just tying it on with rope and wire. This high lift jack has come in so useful. I love it, and I love the fact that this Nissan has so many jacking points. You can basically jack this vehicle up from any direction. Bit of tow rope, and I must say this repair worked out okay, and it was perfectly fine. This was a hyena as I was underneath the vehicle tying that together. The others spotted this hyena just walking past. I think it had been lying in the mud because this is just by the diversion by Mapme where this happened. But as you can see, just tying it together, you can't really see the problem when from these angles, but we got it done. So put it all back together, and it did hold out all the way to Khwai. And then my other brother, not the one who was traveling in the RAV, he was also in Khwai at the time and was able to fashion up a solution like a homemade U-bolt, and that held for the rest of the trip, but more of that later on. This is the little section. If you take the wide diversion, you don't see this at Mapme, but I always hug the edge of this, and unless the water is very high, you don't actually have to take that big wide diversion. The big diversion is very sandy. I think you're going to, here we pass, no, I don't show it. I thought I showed the sandy section, but we don't. This is just through the village of Mapme, and we're using the steel bridge now because this one, as you can see, is starting to fall down, the concrete bridge. But in the past, we always used the concrete bridge. So there we are, using the new bridge. Khwai, 37 kilometers. Now there is a hyena den, not very far from Khwai, not very far from Mapme, I'm sorry. And we pulled in here, and there were about 3 hyenas just lying in the shade here, outside the Mababi hyena den. So if you know the Mababi hyena den, this is it. Um, it's not very far from Khwai. Actually, a number of people told me about this hyena den, but there was one guy on Instagram. He let me know. I forgot his name, but you know who you are. Thanks for the heads up and the directions to that. To that. And this was a leopard, just maybe 7 kilometers from Khwai. That leopard was just on the side of the road. He was a bit far in, so didn't get much footage or photos. Oh yes, more vehicle problems. You'll remember from last time we had the same issue, basically diesel starvation. So while we were limping home, we came across, you see us walking to the bush there, another vehicle had broken down, and so we had to go help push them. But even with the starvation of fuel, we managed to get to our campsite, Kwakwaba campsite. The details are in the description. But here we are, unpacking. Many hands make light work. The diesel problem is on this vehicle was basically just a blockage in the fuel tank. The pipe that goes into the fuel tank would pick up basically bits of rust, I think, and flakes of rust that have, from the vibrations, have broken off from the tank and blocked the pipe. So basically, you will see me throughout this trip, every now and again, just climb underneath and basically blow air back into the tank from underneath. It's a horrible job. You get diesel in your mouth. But once I would do that, I would be able to drive for like often 2, 3, 4 hours without it blocking up again. And then I'll just have to go and do the same thing. I got quite good at it, I would say. And in the end, I could do it in just a few minutes. So not bad. But yeah, here we are, setting up a tent. Well, in this case, I was just showing our friends how to set up a tent. But I think they did really well. They got it up in no time. While everyone settled down in camp to relax a little bit, I got to work on the vehicle just to try and figure out what was going wrong, because obviously at the time I didn't quite know what was causing the fuel starvation. And so I spent my afternoon in my favorite place, not really, underneath the vehicle. One day I'll either have a really good TDI Land Rover or a nice Land Cruiser. But for now, we will continue fighting with this Nissan, which, to be fair, we got it going, and I do love it for its simplicity. Well, after getting that done, took a little walk to the showers. I'm not used to having people just film me as I walk. It's a bit weird. But then back to camp, everyone got involved in prepping and cooking. It's a big job to cook for like seven. How many people were? I think we were like 7 people on this trip. And normally, if it's just me and my wife, it's very simple, very easy. But when you are preparing for a lot of people in the bush, it does become a bit complicated. They got a little bit of color on them. Well, it's morning now, and had a good night's sleep. It's a beautiful morning. Just gotten up. This vehicle, still not working. So, me and Heather are in camp. Going to make some coffee. But as I was having a lie-in this morning, we didn't hear anything last night. But this morning, how dirty my fingers are. That's what this thing. This morning, heard lions roaring, basically over there. And I know there's a road that goes around that side. So it's really good to know where these lions are hiding. But now, get this fire going, make some coffee, take coffee to the princess, and then hopefully later on today we'll be able to get this fixed and be able to get exploring again. After a quiet morning in camp, my brother came, stopped by, and brought with him a homemade U-bolt. You can actually see it there. And so the rest of the afternoon I spent fitting it, and was able to, in the end, get the vehicle back and ready to go. And here were the elephants. The elephants often visit the campsite where we like to stay here at Khwai campsite. You'll throughout the day and often in the night, you'll have the elephants in and around camp, which is really, really nice. They are very calm, very peaceful, and of course, as long as you don't get in their way, they're very chill. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time at this trip, well, especially in the beginning, working on this vehicle. But I'm glad to say, because it's so simple, this vehicle, I was able to get it all fixed up. That is the benefit of this vehicle. Of course, after all that, it was time for a little nap before the afternoon game drive. But even before that, snacks. I feel like afternoon snacks are so important on safari. A bit of cheese, some steak, some crackers, gin and tonic. You can't go wrong. So here we are, we're heading out, and you can actually see on the map, this is our campsite. We would come out, cross this little bridge, that's the bridge that goes to Khwai, and then all in this section there's a network of roads in this section, and this is the area we spent a lot of our time exploring. Sometimes it can be busy, but I find it a lot less busy than the Mokgotlo side, although at the Mokgotlo side the sightings are very good. But I actually really like this area. There was rumors of lions being around, and so we really wanted to spend some time in this area. It can be a bit swampy at times, different times of the year. Of course, in August it's quite dry, but as you will see, we had a few little river crossings, but it was pretty dry for the most part. Oh yes, here we are. Just had to bleed the system. But I actually got quite good at this. Like, at first it was like really difficult, but after a little bit of practice, we got quite good at it. This is the hyena den. Now you'll remember from last video, we had the hyenas there. We could go and visit them almost every single time, which was really nice. But this time we didn't find the hyenas at this den. It was actually empty. So we just snooped around that area as I showed you on the map, seeing what we could see. There's a lot of network of roads that don't show up on most maps, and I think it's for this reason that we use Mapme, and it makes a huge difference. This is not sponsored by Mapme, but honestly it's a free app. If you're going to be exploring especially the remoter areas of Botswana, I highly recommend you download Mapme, download the Botswana map, and it allows you to track yourself so you can see where you've been. Yeah, super good. I found this piece of elephant ivory just next to the road. Of course, the elephants often break their tusks, so it's not uncommon, but it was really cool to find. I actually just pushed it down an anthill behind a log. You do not want to take that with you, as tempting as it might be to take it as some kind of souvenir. Leave it behind. But I decided to just move it off the road where it was. So lots of elephants here, which is really cool. I love seeing these you often find these old bull elephants eating the tender grass in the rivers. And I think later on in this video, I'll show you one that's been there for such a long time. I found him so many years. He just lives here in the Quai River. This is at the far side of this section that I showed you on the map. It often gets very swampy. I really like this area. Even while we were here, the lions were spotted in this area. I mean, we saw the lions very close to here, and you'll see later on. But even cheetah, there was 2 cheetah spotted in this area. So yeah, a very nice area, a bit more remote, because a lot of people don't want to do the river crossings coming from the Mokotlo side, and so this side is a bit more quiet. Well, with the light fading quickly, we turned ourselves around and started heading back home to camp. It's amazing how quickly the light will fade once the sun is set. But this was so beautiful. We just passed this little swamp land. I forget the name, what it's called, but honestly, such a beautiful sunset.
Oh, they're not stuck in the swamp.
Well, this was a little bit scary. My diesel got blocked again, and so I had to jump out in the middle of Machaba Pan and crawl underneath and unblock it. I really don't like doing things like this, especially in the dead of night. Well, it wasn't the dead of night. I mean, the sun had just set, but in the dark, I had to crawl under there and do it. But this is basically real time. It didn't take any time at all. Got it done, and we were back on the road, heading back to camp. Some elephant just over here. But yeah, got back to the main road in no time. It's always good to get back on the main road, and then back to camp. And it's always nice when your brother has gotten early and got dinner going. My wife had made us a curry, and we had frozen it, so it was just a matter of defrosting that curry and having a nice curry dinner. Had a look around to see some fish. It was interesting seeing the shallow waters here, the little catfish or barbel as we call them here, and also taking a UV light and looking for scorpions. So that was really cool. Super cool to see these little animals. I will definitely recommend a UV light for other explorers. The next morning we woke fresh and early. It was a bit chilly. Got that coffee made and head right out. I'm a strong believer in getting an early start on a game drive. How cool is this? That little giraffe just peeking out over the brush. So we set out this time again on the same side that I showed you the map for. We took this little loop that loops along the Quai River. Actually, I think this is the Quai River that we looped along, and this is another like abandoned mobile camp we came past. Lots of buffalo in this thicket here. But I mean, how cool is it to have the sunrise on safari? In my opinion, it's 100 times better than a sunset. But I know people are divided on that one. A sunset is great too, don't get me wrong. But there's something very special about a sunrise in the African bush. I think actually anywhere, to be honest. I remember some sunrises in Scotland, really, really beautiful. So I think sunrise is altogether really great. This herd of elephants, they were so relaxed, so chill. Really, really special just to be able to chill with them and watch them. And of course, we had our friends with us, so we spent a lot of time looking at the animals that I think we often just drive past, like the zebra and the impala. But there's something special about that too, just chilling with these guys. I mean, they are pretty awesome, to be honest. And of course, this, because why not? Just crawl underneath there and get the diesel flowing again. Uh, Not my favorite thing to do, especially early in the morning when it's really cold. I would take my shirt off just so it didn't get dirty. I don't just walk around like a hobo with no shirt on all the time. I normally keep my shirt on. But yeah, we kept searching as the sun rose. I think it's about time for coffee now, to be honest. This here is more of a swamp crossing than a river crossing. And a little tip is look for white sand at the entrance and exit of these river crossings. And if you see white sand, you've got a pretty good understanding that it's going to be quite hard underneath, not muddy and clayey. If you don't see that telltale white sand, prepare for some very soft mud often. Stay in the groove. Don't drive on the grass. You go on the grass, it gets very wet and boggy, and you're more likely to get stuck. Drive where other cars have driven, and you'll be okay. There was this dead elephant here. We kept coming back here because I thought, well, maybe some kind of animals would come by it. But I think it was just old enough that the predators had stopped coming by it. And to be honest, we've noticed that there's a few places where animals seem to have died of disease, and the predators don't seem to touch it at all. It seems like they know that there's something wrong with it, and they just won't eat it. So I think maybe that was the case with that elephant, because it didn't look like it had been eaten much at all. As I said, this far corner of that area we saw on the map is very swampy, and of course, as you move into the rainy season, it gets even more swampy. A little coffee stop. This was by the one river crossing that people don't use anymore because it's too deep at the moment. But it's a place where people have been stopping for picnics, and so we did the same, and we stopped to have our coffee. I do feel like, well, for us anyway, I think everybody's different, but we always stop around 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier, sometimes like 9 o'clock, even 8 o'clock to stop for coffee, depending how early we left camp. But it is always nice, stretch your legs. Of course, don't stop for coffee in a place which is surrounded by thick bush or you can't see. If you are going to stop somewhere where you can see people do stop for coffee. And just be respectful. Don't make a lot of noise. Definitely don't go wandering off into the bush. It can be very dangerous. This was just a zebra skull that I found on the side of the road. Just wanted to have a look at it. I think it's a zebra skull. To be honest, I stand to be corrected if it's not. If you do know what it is, let me know. But I think it's a zebra skull. I'm pretty sure it's a zebra skull. Back at the elephant just to check it. Nothing was happening here. And every time we did check it, and I think we checked it a few more times, we didn't find anything here. We were spending a lot of time in this area, and if you know Khwai at all, and you can probably recognize this area, it was because we knew there was a mating, a couple of lions, two lions mating in this area, and they weren't really moving. They were somewhere in this area, and it was on this excursion that we kind of pinpointed where to find them. But there were just so many vehicles heading in that direction that we decided to leave it and come back early the next morning to try and find them, because you don't want to be crowded out with people. Well, I don't. So here we are back at the river actually, and remember I did say that the old bulls like to hang about in the river, and there's one old guy, and it's not this guy. I will tell you when we see him. He's got one tusk, and it's very, very long, and he's really such a spectacular old guy. And I've seen him time and time again here on the Quai River. He's a really gentle old bull. I think that's him across there, not this one. There he is. You can see his one tusk, That's very long for Botswana elephants. And we don't have big tuskers really like in Kruger or in Kenya. Our tuskers are basically like him. You do get some tuskers, but they are very, very rare to spot. Yeah, I think it's time to head home and get some breakfast on the go. To be honest, a very late breakfast. Well, just before heading home for breakfast, I decided to pass by the wild dog den. Went to the wild dog den and it wasn't in use, apart from this really cool old bull kudu that was standing nearby. Nothing was happening at the wild dog den. In fact, nobody had even driven there for a long time. But the wild dog do hang around this area, and often you can find the wild dogs hanging around between the airport and Machaba. The wild dogs use that area. Of course, they go everywhere, but we've definitely found that this is an area they like to hang out a lot more. But yeah, headed back to camp, past some other travelers. Sometimes I am a little envious of some of these safari vehicles you see, like that one leading the way was a very nice Land Cruiser. Even this one, very nice. Double cab Land Cruiser, what's not to like? But yeah, back to camp for some breakfast.
And now we made it back to camp and it's time to make some breakfast.
Excuse me, that's my line. Now we made it back to camp and it's time for some breakfast.
And where do we have the eggs?
And ladies and gentlemen, this is my brother and he's making us breakfast. And if you want, I will leave his links down below. He is an artist and he paints paintings, wildlife paintings in particular, but he does paint a lot of paintings of donkeys and children and people playing in rivers and all those kind of weird things. So if you think you'll like that, his links are down below. But yeah, it was time to go and have a shower, and I decided to do the filming for a while. Normally it is my lovely wife, but today I did. It is, as you can see, 3:30, time to head out on another game drive. And we were back out at it again. We knew those lions were around. We weren't sure if they had crossed over from the other side yet, from the Mokotlo side to our side. So we decided to drive back in that direction again. And this is the road. Some of you will probably recognize it. It drives past the hyena den, and then it drives through two little pans. One small pan, one big pan. I call them the Machaba pans. I think a lot of other people also call them the Machaba pans because they're right there by the lodge, Machaba Lodge. But yeah, we just explored this section. It was a very chill afternoon and a really great sunset at the end of it. As I mentioned, those bull elephants, they do like to hang about here. And basically, there he is again. I mean, he hasn't moved. He's still there. This is our one we were talking about with the one tusk. He's a very friendly little guy, and as you can see, he washes the roots clean so that he doesn't have to eat the sand, because of course the more sand he eats, the more it wears down his teeth, and being an old boy, his teeth are already quite well worn down.
Kudu. These ones are not fluffy. Also, lions will eat them. They're a bit bigger, I think. The males have got really big horns.
The know and everything.
Let's go!
It's very hard, and that's why I waited. You can see sand. Don't worry, good loss.
Back up.
Yeah. Well, we stopped for Sundown is just on the other side of the river crossing from Mokotlo side. The lions were just on the other side of the crossing. You can see the safari vehicles. There were so many safari vehicles, hundreds of them. There was so much dust, and they were crowded all around the lions. We couldn't see the lions from obviously on the other side of the crossing, but we could see all the safari vehicles that were just like all over them. And so we made up our mind then and there that we would get up early the next morning and drive all the way to the Mokotlo side and have a look at those lions. And that's what we would do. But right now, travel back home, get some dinner on the go, and have a good night's sleep, because we were going to have a very early morning the next morning. Check on the map. I'm heading, I think I'm almost at the den.
Yeah, we're just approaching it.
Oh yes, I have my vegetables then.
Don't come here flexing your vegetables.
Like, charge camera battery, phone, I've brought the inverter along. There's also got flip that not be used. Yeah. Because it does draw on a battery, but like my Luna fridge.
You said that was an owl?
That's the one, the owl that.
That's the one that Austin.
Yeah.
Like Caleb. It's 5:23, coffee is made, and we've got our early start. We drove out. By half 5 we were on our way out, and heading over to the Mokotlo side to see if we could find those lions. We had a really good idea of where they were because we could see where the safari vehicles had been the evening before. My main goal here was to try and beat all the rest of the safari vehicles and be able to get there early so we could see them, spend a little bit of time with them, and then be able to leave once the first safari vehicle arrived. And it wasn't long before we did find them. This couple were very chill, and it's interesting because the other safari vehicles had told us how aggressive this male lion had been, charging the safari vehicles. And I think the main reason for that was just because he was angry because there were so many safari vehicles around him. But because we were the only vehicle here early in the morning, he was very relaxed, very chill. And it just shows if you give them their space, you respect them, you're not going to come into these situations where you have wild animals charging your vehicles or trying to attack you. Just respect their space, and you'll be okay for the most part. Of course, there are exceptions, but these guys were quite relaxed. They were just interested in themselves. Though, to be honest, I don't think she was very interested in her boyfriend. I think the novelty had started to wear off, but obviously it hadn't yet worn off for him. But I think she was about done with the whole affair and wanted to go and get a good meal and maybe take a nap.
She's hungry. She wants food.
And still with no other safari vehicles in sight, we watched as this couple made their way off into the pan, into the swampland. I think she was hungry. I think she wanted to find some food. I think he was still interested in love making, but she just wanted a good, steady meal. And so she was eager to get away. In fact, later on we found him again, but she had managed to escape his attention. I think probably had gone off to try and hunt down some food. But so beautiful to see them so relaxed, just moving off into the swampland. And this, of course, meant that we could go on with our search and hopefully find maybe a leopard. A leopard would be cool. And this area is known to have good leopard sightings. The Mokotlo area, if you move around the Mokotlo area, both in the evenings and in the mornings, I particularly think the mornings are better. Your chances of finding leopard are pretty good. So we went off, we found lots of fresh lion tracks. Some of them was this couple, but it did look like further on, it did look like there was another couple moving around. So we spent a bit of time tracking them, but it could just have been the same couple, but it just seemed a little bit far away from where they had been the evening before and where we found them in the morning. So I think that it could have been another couple, but we didn't find that couple again. But yeah, how beautiful is the sunrise? but due to our early morning start, we all needed a coffee. So we made a little stop, made some coffee next to the river, a beautiful little spot. This is the area that a lot of people stop for picnics. It's a little clearing next to the river. And so we made ourselves some coffee for the morning. And then we just went on after our coffee break, and we didn't drive very far before we came across a bit of a commotion. A whole lot of safari vehicles zooming around. We were like, why are there all these vehicles zooming around in circles? And it soon became very apparent. We spotted it. It was a leopard being heavily surrounded by safari vehicles. In fact, at this point, I turned around because I was like, there's no way I'm getting into this mess. I made a turnaround here, and as you'll see, after I turned around, the leopard came round the other side of the bush. They literally herded this leopard all the way around. In fact, and he walked right here next to our vehicle, which was really, really cool. But very unexpected, because at this point I said, you know what, we're not going to see it. We're not going to go and, make our way around all these vehicles. But they basically chased him in a big circle. After I turned around, they chased the leopard round the back, and he came back the same way that he had just been. So it was a cool sighting to see him, but such a shame that there were so many vehicles. My advice in a situation like that, if you do come across it, look, if you can get 1 or 2 pictures, nice, but don't hang around. If there's a lot of vehicles, don't hang around. If there's 1, 2, 3 vehicles, fine, you can definitely spend a little bit more time there. But when there are a lot of vehicles like that, if you can get 1 or 2 pictures, nice, but then move on as soon as you possibly can. But if you see that, you know what, the chances of me getting a photo aren't going to be great, just leave. Because often you regret the sighting more when it's got lots of people around. So instead we went back and we found that male lion again. He was just by himself, as I mentioned earlier. The female lion seemed to have escaped him for a little bit and probably gone off to try and hunt something down for breakfast. And breakfast time it was for us too, so we started heading back home to get some breakfast.
Need those skiing glasses as well.
Yeah.
Always a little bit of work to do around camp and on the vehicle. A little bit of a puncture, so fixed it. This tire actually blew out on my way home. You don't see it in the video. But I think if you get a hole in the sidewall, that is bound to happen. And all I can think is, hooked it on a little bit of a stump or something, and it was kaput. That little repair did last for a little while, but in the end, not for that long. Here I am taking some hot coals to the hot water system at the campsite. To be honest, normally the guys come up and they light the fire, but for some reason, I think because it was just so hot, they didn't light the hot water fire, and so I did. Because my wife likes a hot shower, and so happy wife, happy life. Make hot water. But there's a good tap here by the campsite ablutions, and so it was a little face wash. It was so hot at this time of the year. Of course, this is August, and of course this is August. It was hot, but by October, this place was so much hotter. I didn't come up here personally in October, but friends of ours did, and it was very, very hot. So, yeah, August is okay, but October, that's a bit hot. But with the water hot in the showers for my lovely wife, it was time for a shower. I did not have a hot shower. I'm not a person who's going to have a hot shower when it is 30 degrees outside, but hot showers were available. Elephants just hanging around camp. And time for a bit of an afternoon drive. Haven't seen a leopard that morning, haven't seen a lion. Our goal was to try and find wild dogs. We had heard that they had been seen moving around a small pack. I think we heard there were 3 wild dogs moving around near the airport area, and so we decided we'd go there, have a snoop around, and then maybe just have sundowners because it was our last evening, and see what we saw. Now this is the green shop in Khwai, and for the last few times I've came here, it's closed. So yeah, let me know. Have you ever found that green shop open? But there is a little shop in the town that is open more than the green shop. So if the green shop is closed, head into town, you will find a shop there. I just wanted to buy some lemonade, and I did find some, so that was good. This is by the airport. We were hanging around the airport area because obviously we were looking for those wild dogs. We knew they were around somewhere, and we just wanted to see if we could find them.
Yeah. Is she from?
And this was it, our last evening, our last sundowner. Got those snacks out, got some gin and tonics, and really just sat there talking about our trip and watching the sunset. This was in the one in the Mapme pan, and it was very peaceful, very nice. It has been a great trip, and little did we know that the next morning we would have a really epic sighting, which would make up for not finding the wild dogs this evening. Heads up, we do find them. But yeah, a little bit more of that later.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love him to pioneer.
Go help Heather.
Well, our last morning, time to get that coffee on and start breaking down camp and getting ready to leave. It's been a great trip. Only thing we really needed to see was the wild dogs, and I must say this was a super cool sighting that happened next. Basically, right in the middle of packing down a camp, something epic happened, and that was we got a message from our brother saying the wild dogs are on the road. And so mid coffee making, mid taking down camp, we jumped in our vehicles and head off to see if we could find those wild dogs. But apparently they were moving. And with only one other safari vehicle with these dogs, we found them. 4 very happy wild dogs. They were so playful, just running around. They chased an elephant. I mean, they wouldn't attack an elephant, but they chased it playfully. They rolled around, they chased each other. It was such a beautiful sighting, and very, very special way to end a really cool trip to the Khwai area. Wild dogs are super cool. They're, of course, very rare to spot them. They are an endangered species. There are not a lot of them around, and so if you do see them, count yourself very fortunate to come across them. And we were very fortunate and very happy to have these guys running around our vehicle. Super cool.
They're like playing hide and seek, they're just running in circles. There's all four of them. These wild dogs are just running in circles. Like they run behind the guys, then the guys swim after them, then they run in the bush, they come up behind the guys. Wow, they're running in the pan here. Very cool. You guys just turn around.
Well, after that really cool sighting, spending that time in the morning with the wild dogs, we were back at camp. It was time to pack up and say goodbye to our camp. Hopefully we'll be back here again soon. But I think I'm not going to come back for a little while because it's the rainy season coming up, and I've had my time in Khwai in the rainy season, and I'm not a fan. It is very muddy, and so I don't think I will be around for the rainy season. But when things get dry a bit, I will be back out here again with another Khwai video. But hopefully between the Khwai video and next Khwai video, we will be heading to the Kalahari, maybe Naipan as well. And we will also be dropping a video about our trip to Namibia. It's a bit of a different one. We just took a little holiday. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and do all those things. It really makes a huge difference. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And take care. Until next time. Bye.